"Oh my God, those shoes look like they've seen better days." Cassidy Hartley's voice carried just enough volume to reach Malik Rivers as he settled into his seat. The laughter that followed from nearby passengers felt like a punch to the gut. Malik froze, gripping the armrest tightly, his fingers digging into the fabric. He glanced down at his shoes, scuffed but clean, and forced himself not to react. "Excuse me," a passenger called out behind him. "Could I get some water over here?" Cassidy turned with a smile so warm it seemed rehearsed. "Of course. Sir." "Right away." Malik exhaled slowly through his nose, trying to steady himself. His jaw tightened as Cassidy walked past him without acknowledgement. The weight of her words lingered in the air, heavier than any physical insult could have been. He didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning. The plane hummed softly as engines roared outside, but inside, silence pressed down on Malik like an invisible force. Each chuckle from surrounding passengers sliced deeper into his resolve. A young woman across the aisle caught his eye briefly before looking away, her expression unreadable. Was she embarrassed for him, or amused? Malik's hands clenched involuntarily, knuckles whitening under his dark skin. He wanted to say something, to defend himself, but what would that accomplish? Would they listen, or would their laughter grow louder? Instead, he smiled. It wasn't genuine, it never could be in moments like these, but it served its purpose, a shield against their judgment. Still, beneath the surface, anger simmered. Every laugh, every dismissive glance fueled it. As Cassidy returned with another round of drinks, her gaze skimmed over him again. This time, she didn't even pretend to see him, and then came the whispers. "Excuse me," Malik said quietly, raising his hand slightly when Cassidy passed by. She paused, turning toward a white passenger who hadn't asked for anything. "Here you go, sir. Would you like anything else?" Her tone dripped with courtesy. Malik cleared his throat. Could I please get some water?" Cassidy finally acknowledged him, through her eyes flickered with impatience. "Oh, sure, one moment." But there was no moment. Minutes ticked by as she attended to others first, refilling glasses and exchanging pleasantries, all while ignoring Malik completely. When she finally returned, her delivery lacked warmth. She placed the cup on his tray table with a faint clink, avoiding eye contact altogether. Here, her indifference stung more than outright hostility ever could. It was subtle, calculated, a reminder that he didn't belong here, no matter how polished his suit or how crisp his tie. Malik swallowed hard, tasting bitterness on his tongue. Then, from somewhere behind him, voices lowered conspiratorially. "I'm telling you," one businessman muttered, leaning closer to his companion. "People like that shouldn't even try flying first class. They're clearly out of place." Malik stiffened, pretending not to hear, but the words burrowed deep, gnawing at his composure. People like what? Like him? Like someone whose shoes weren't shiny enough? Whose presence disrupted their comfort zone? The second man chuckled dryly. "Yeah, well, maybe if they dressed better." Their conversation trailed off as Cassidy approached them, offering champagne with practiced ease. Malik stared straight ahead, focusing on the seat back in front of him, yet every word echoed in his mind, amplifying the isolation clawing at his chest. Part of him wanted to turn around, to confront them directly, to demand answers, or justice, or at least recognition. But what good would that do? Experience had taught him that people rarely admitted their biases aloud, so he sat there, silently seething, until memories surfaced unbidden. Memories of a time when shoes meant far more than appearances. Those shoes weren't just footwear, they were a promise. Malik remembered the day his father handed them to him, worn but meticulously cared for. "These will take you places," his dad had said, pride shining in his eyes despite years of hardship etched onto his face. "They might not look like much now, but they'll remind you where you came from and where you're going." Back then, Malik worked 2 jobs after school to help pay bills, wearing sneakers held together with duct tape. When his father gave him those leather shoes, it wasn't just generosity, it was belief. belief that Malik could rise above circumstances designed to hold him down. Now, decades later, sitting on this flight, Malik understood the irony. These same shoes, once symbols of hope, had become targets of ridicule. His father wasn't alive to see how far he'd come, or how cruelly others judged his journey. And yet the sting of Cassidy's mockery felt personal, as though she'd mocked not just his shoes, but everything they represented. Just as Malik wrestled with whether to speak up, a new voice cut through the tension. You know, an elderly woman interjected sharply, addressing Cassidy. It's rude to treat anyone that way, regardless of what they're wearing. Cassidy blinked, caught off guard. Ma'am, I was simply doing my job. The woman raised an eyebrow, her tone icy. Your job doesn't include making passengers feel unwelcome, not unless your airline has policies I'm unaware of. Malik glanced sideways at the speaker, an older white woman seated beside him. Her sharp features softened slightly as she met his gaze. There was something familiar about her demeanor, though he couldn't quite place it. Before Cassidy could respond, the woman leaned closer to Malik, lowering her voice. Don't let her get to you. I've seen this kind of behavior before. It runs deeper than one person. It's systemic. Systemic. The word hung in the air, heavy with implication. Malik nodded slowly, unsure whether to trust her, or what she might do next. But one thing was certain. Whatever happened now, he wouldn't face it alone. Malik noticed it almost too late. The trays of food being distributed down the aisle stopped just short of his row. Around him, passengers unwrapped steaming meals while he sat empty-handed, his stomach twisting with more than hunger. He glanced toward Cassidy, who moved briskly past him without acknowledgement. Something didn't add up. When a flight attendant finally approached, Malik asked calmly, "Excuse me, is there an issue with my meal?" The attendant hesitated, glancing at her clipboard. "Let me check. It seems your seating assignment was flagged as suspicious." "Suspicious?" Malik repeated, incredulous. "For what? Ordering a ticket?" She offered a weak smile before retreating, leaving him to connect the dots himself. Suspicious. The word echoed in his mind, cold and calculated. This wasn't negligence. It was deliberate, racial profiling disguised as protocol. As Malik watched, Cassidy serve others with practiced charm. Her earlier mockery took on a sharper edge. She hadn't just insulted him, she'd marked him. And now everyone else seemed complicit in letting it slide. Beside him, Mrs. Harper leaned closer, her voice low but firm. "This isn't about you, dear. It's about them." Her words hit like a spark, igniting something deeper within him. But before he could respond, she began to speak, not of herself, but of a pain that felt hauntingly familiar. "I had a bakery once," Mrs. Harper said softly, her gaze distant. 40 years I poured into it. Recipes passed down from my grandmother, cakes that won awards. Then one day, inspectors showed up out of nowhere, health violations they claimed, false accusations, every single one. Malik listened intently, sensing the weight behind her words. "They shut me down," she continued, her voice trembling slightly. "Said I wasn't following regulations. Meanwhile, shops half a mile away got away with far worse. Shops owned by people who didn't look like me, or you." Her hand brushed his arm briefly, a gesture both comforting and urgent. "It's not personal, Malik. That's what makes it so cruel. They don't see us as individuals. They see us as threats, as problems to be managed." Malik nodded slowly, recognizing the truth in her story. Her struggle mirrored his own battles against invisible barriers, though decades apart. For the first time since boarding the flight, he felt less alone. But their moment of solidarity was interrupted by a sharp voice cutting through the cabin. "You've got to be kidding me," Derek Wu muttered loudly enough for nearby passengers to hear. A sleek laptop rested on his tray table, its screen glowing faintly. "Is this how your airline treats award-winning executives these days?" Cassidy turned sharply, startled. "What do you mean, sir?" Derek gestured toward Malik, his tone dripping with disdain. "Him, Malik Rivers, ring any bells? Innovator of the Year at last month's Tech Summit? Or does excellence only matter when it comes packaged a certain way? For a split second, Cassidy faltered, her polished demeanor cracking under scrutiny. Passengers craned their necks, murmuring amongst themselves as Derek pressed on. This man deserves respect, not suspicion. Fix it, now. His command carried authority, silencing objections before they formed. Cassidy hesitated, then reluctantly retrieved a meal tray for Malik, her movements stiff with resentment. As Derek leaned back in satisfaction, Malik offered a quiet thanks, but the entrepreneur waved it off dismissively. Don't mention it. Just doing what's right. Yet beneath Derek's confident exterior, something lingered unspoken. Something Malik couldn't quite place yet. Later, during a brief lull, Derek approached Malik again. This time, his tone lacked its earlier bravado. Look, he began, lowering his voice. I know we don't know each other well, but I wanted to clarify something. Helping you today, it wasn't entirely altruistic. Malik frowned, unsure. Where this was headed, Derek sighed, running a hand through his hair. My PR team has been pushing me to align with social causes. You know, optics. So when I saw what happened, he trailed off, shrugging awkwardly. I figured stepping in would score points, for both of us. The admission stung more than Malik expected. Gratitude warred with disillusionment as he processed Derek's words. Was anything genuine anymore? Or was every act of kindness tainted by self-interest? Before he could respond, commotion erupted further down the aisle. Sir, please remain. Calm. Cassidy's voice rang out, sharp and panicked. Two burly security officers appeared, moving swiftly toward Malik's seat. What's going on? Malik demanded, rising instinctively. She claims you were aggressive, one officer replied, his tone clipped. Gasps rippled through the cabin as passengers whipped out phones, filming the unfolding scene. Malik held up his hands, incredulous. Aggressive? For asking for water? For sitting quietly while she insulted me? Mrs. Harper stood beside him, her voice steady despite the chaos. This is absurd. He hasn't done anything wrong. Cassidy stepped forward, her expression smug. He raised his voice, threatened me. Lies piled upon lies, each accusation more damning than the last. Malik clenched his fists, fighting. The urge to lash out. Around him, whispers grew louder, cameras rolled, and judgment hung heavy in the air. Would anyone believe the truth? Or would the narrative spin beyond his control? The fluorescent lights of the terminal buzzed overhead as security officers escorted Malik off the plane, their grips firm on his arms despite his compliance. Passengers craned their necks to watch, phones raised like weapons, capturing every moment of his disgrace. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Did he really threaten her? Look at him. So angry. Malik's heart pounded in his chest, not from fear but from fury. His silence had been weaponized against him, twisted into an accusation of aggression. The media outlets were already spinning the narrative, painting him as the villain. Headlines flashed across social media before he'd even reached the terminal floor. Passenger assaults air hostess over shoes, and first-class tantrum leads to arrest. Each step felt heavier than the last, as though the weight of public judgment pressed down on him physically. He clenched his jaw, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing him break. But inside, despair clawed at him. How could anyone believe this lie? As he sat alone on a cold bench in the terminal, scrolling through the venomous comments online, Malik hit rock bottom. For the first time in years, tears pricked at the corners of his eyes, but he refused to let them fall. Not here. Not now. Then his phone rang. An unknown number. This is Malik Rivers, he answered, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. Mr. Rivers, my name is Sophia Patel. I'm a journalist with Equity Voice. I've been investigating Cassidy Hartley, and I think you'll want to hear what I've uncovered. Malik straightened, his exhaustion giving way to cautious curiosity. What kind of investigation? Sophia's tone sharpened with urgency. Over the past year, multiple passengers have filed complaints about Cassidy targeting minority travelers. One woman was denied boarding because her hijab didn't meet dress code. Another man was accused of stealing silverware simply for asking for extra napkins. And get this, every single complaint was dismissed by airline management without follow-up. Malik exhaled sharply, his mind racing. Why are you telling me this? Because your story isn't isolated, Sophia replied. It's systemic. What happened to you today wasn't personal. It's policy. But we can change that. With your permission, I can release these documents publicly, expose the truth. For the first time since stepping off the plane, Malik felt a flicker of hope. But Sophia wasn't finished yet. There's more, she said quietly. And it's bigger than Cassidy. Cassidy isn't just any air hostess, Sophia continued, her voice dropping lower. She's the daughter of Robert Hartley, the CEO of Skyline Airlines. Malik froze, the implications sinking in like lead weights. Of course. It all made sense now. The preferential treatment Cassidy received, the dismissals of complaints, the unchecked power she wielded over passengers. This wasn't negligence, it was design. She uses her position to enforce her father's vision of who belongs on those planes, Sophia explained. Minorities, low-income travelers, their inconveniences to be managed, and when they push back, they're silenced. Malik gripped the phone tightly, his knuckles whitening. So this whole thing, it's not about me or my shoes, it's about keeping people like me in their place. Exactly, Sophia confirmed. But if we act fast, we can turn this around. You're not just a victim, Malik. You're evidence, living proof of their hypocrisy. Her words ignited something within him. Anger burned brighter than despair, fueling a determination he hadn't felt in hours. I'll do whatever it takes, he said firmly. Back in his hotel room later that night, Malik opened his laptop and began calculating. Using his corporate expense account, he accessed Skyline Airlines' booking system. Every available first-class seat on upcoming flights, hundreds of them, he purchased outright. The cost was staggering but irrelevant. His company would reimburse him anyway, and besides, this wasn't about money. It was about exposing the airline's greed and elitism. By buying out first class, Malik forced the airline into an impossible situation. Either deny paying customers their rightful upgrades or admit they valued profit over fairness. Within hours, news broke. Social media erupted with outrage as passengers shared stories of being upgraded unexpectedly. Journalists scrambled to understand the sudden surge in generosity, until Sophia released her findings, tying it all back to Malik's ordeal. Skyline. Airlines issued a statement denying wrongdoing, but the damage was done. Protesters gathered outside their headquarters, demanding accountability. Employees spoke out anonymously, confirming long-standing discriminatory practices. For Malik, vindication tasted sweeter than revenge. He hadn't just fought back, he'd dismantled the system designed to crush him. And yet he knew this was only the beginning. Skyline Airlines unraveled faster than anyone could have predicted. Malik's audacious move, buying out first-class seats en masse, sparked a media firestorm. Headlines blared across every platform. Airline forced to upgrade. Economy passengers after executives' bold move. And systemic racism exposed. Skyline faces public wrath. Protests erupted outside the airline's headquarters, with thousands chanting slogans like, "No justice, no flights." Employees began speaking out anonymously, detailing years of unchecked discrimination and favoritism. Cassidy Hartley became the face of corporate bias, her smug demeanor during interviews only fueling public fury. Within days, she was fired, and shortly after, her father, Robert Hartley, resigned as CEO amid mounting pressure. Behind closed doors, chaos reigned within Skyline's leadership team. Board members scrambled to issue apologies, pledging reforms that rang hollow against the backdrop of leaked emails revealing their complicity. For Malik, watching the fallout unfold felt surreal. He hadn't set out to dismantle an entire company, but seeing justice served, even imperfectly, brought a sense of vindication. Yet, amidst the triumph, he couldn't shake the lingering weight of what had happened. The scars run deeper than any headline could capture. As the dust settled, Malik found himself reflecting on where to go next, not just for himself but for others who still faced similar battles daily. That's when Mrs. Harper reached out. "Malik," Mrs. Harper said warmly over the phone, "I've been following everything. You've done something remarkable." Her voice carried a quiet strength, grounding him instantly. They met at a small cafe near his office, far from the noise of reporters and cameras. Over coffee they talked, not about revenge or victory, but about purpose. "You remind me of myself 30 years ago," she admitted, stirring her tea thoughtfully. "So angry, so determined to prove them wrong. But anger alone won't change the world. It needs direction." Mrs. Harper shared stories of how she'd rebuilt her life after losing her bakery, channeling her pain into advocacy work. She introduced Malik to grassroots organizations fighting systemic racism in industries ranging from aviation to tech. Together, they brainstormed ways he could use his platform to amplify marginalized voices. By the end of their meeting, Malik felt lighter, as though the burden of his ordeal had transformed into something meaningful. With Mrs. Harper's guidance, he began drafting plans for a nonprofit aimed at dismantling institutional barriers. But before he could fully step into this new chapter, one final twist awaited him. It came in the form of an email. From Derek. "Woo, Malik," the message read. "I owe you an explanation. I leaked the video of your confrontation with Cassidy to the press. My intention wasn't noble. I wanted to discredit you, to paint you as unprofessional and volatile. But it backfired." Derek went on to explain how the footage ignited global outrage instead, turning Malik into a symbol of resistance. What Derek had meant as sabotage became salvation, a catalyst for widespread support and reform. Malik stared at the screen, torn, between disbelief and dark amusement. Of all the twists in this saga, this might have been the most ironic. Derek's betrayal hadn't destroyed him. It had elevated him. He deleted the email without responding. Some debts weren't worth settling verbally. Instead, Malik focused on the bigger picture, the movement growing around him. If Derek's actions had inadvertently sparked change, then perhaps there was hope even in humanity's flaws. With clarity, renewed, Malik prepared for his next step, one that would reach millions. Standing on the TED stage, Malik took a deep breath, letting the hum of anticipation fill the auditorium. Behind him, a single slide displayed a quote from his late father. "Resilience isn't just surviving, it's thriving despite the odds." "When I boarded Flight 472, Malik began, his voice steady yet impassioned, "I never imagined it would lead me here. A pair of worn shoes became a battleground, not because of their appearance, but because they represented everything I fought to overcome. Humility, hardship, hope." He recounted his journey, the mockery, the profiling, the protests, and tied it all back to a larger truth. Systemic racism isn't just one person's prejudice. It's a web woven into institutions, and dismantling it requires collective effort. Each of us has a role to play. Malik urged the audience to challenge biases, advocate for equity, and embrace resilience as a tool for transformation. His closing words echoed like a call to arms. We can't rewrite the past, but we can redefine the future. Together, let's build a world where no one is judged by the shoes they wear, or the color of their skin. As applause thundered through the room, Malik stepped off stage, ready to continue the fight. As Malik's story shows, the smallest acts of bias can ripple into life-altering consequences, and the fight for justice begins with each of us. But let's be honest, change doesn't happen in silence. It starts with conversations like this one. So, here's my question to you. Have you ever judged someone based on appearances? How can we break these cycles? Think about it. Maybe it was a stranger, a colleague, or even yourself on the receiving end of unfair judgment. Share your thoughts below, because every voice matters in this movement toward understanding and equity. If this story resonated with you, don't let it end here. Like, share, and subscribe to keep the conversation alive. Together, we can challenge systemic racism one step at a time. Let's turn empathy into action and stories like Malik's into catalysts for real change.